Hey Steven, this is my response to your video about the top 10 reasons to not teach ESL in China. Now, I'm not really necessarily going to dispute any of your claims. I think I'm more expanding on some of your things, some of the statements you made. I think maybe add some more details. And generally, I think I want to... I don't want to try and say like I'm going to be more negative, but I do think that your video actually came off fairly positive. And when you told me that some people have criticized you for that video being negative, I didn't really see it. I think you were very defensive of China. And I think sometimes you held back a little bit, actually. Like you didn't want to be overly critical. But I do think there's some criticisms that need to be addressed about living in China. I won't go over all your points. So I'll just try and go quickly over the points you made, and then I want to go into some extra things that I thought about. Number one, you mentioned like culture superiority. Yeah, if you do feel like you are live in the best country in the whole world, like going anywhere, not even just China, going anywhere is going to be difficult for you. So, but I do want to make this point. You will see a lot of nationalism in China. And if you're someone that's not into nationalism, you know, it can be annoying. But, I mean, there's nationalism everywhere. I mean, that's just the honest truth. So, it's just something if you're like me and you don't like care about patriotism or nationalism, no matter where you go, you're going to encounter it. And it's just something you have to deal with because people take pride in their country. There's one thing that a lot of foreigners have said this too, and I know you mentioned it, is this feeling of, well, you're a guest in their country. And it's like, I don't like that statement because number one, I've been living here for a few years now. I'm not a guest. I'm not a tourist. You know, I'm a part of the community in a sense. You know, I live here, I work here, I contribute to the economy. To say I'm a guest, no. So it's like, I don't really know where that comes from. I think you're living here, you're part of them. You know, you're a part of the culture here in a sense. So I don't understand this like kind of like, oh, you know, you're a guest, so you need to just do whatever they do, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you're living here, if you're part of the scene, I think you have a right to say something, you know. I'll skip a few points because I think you already mentioned it, but lack of politeness. Yeah, you know, it's like, this is a big one. You need to be ready for this if you're going to come here. When I get on the subway, not all the time, but a few times, sometimes, when I get off, there's people just boom, you know, trying to get right in when I'm getting out. I hate it. It's annoying, but it's gotten to the point where I purposely like push people, not physically push them, but like, you know, I'll shoulder them a bit, you know, like I'll just be like boom like that, and it's like okay, then you know they'll back off and whatnot because I feel like it's not wrong to do that because they've clearly not given you the space to get out. They feel like it's okay. But then again, if you push them out, if you shoulder people out of the way, like they don't really usually make a fuss about it either. So it's like, it is what it is, but that's something you have to be ready to. If you're going to live, especially if you're living in a bigger city with like subways or like one of the train station, things like that, where you have to, you know, shoulder people because people are just like, there's just a lack of sense of personal space. You know, even if you're waiting in line, like sometimes there's people like way up on you, and it's just like, they don't get it. They don't understand, you know, space. Poor hygiene. Yeah, I mean, look, it really is there. But I feel like, Steven, sometimes you treat these things a little too lightly. And I mean, if you need to be more prepared for these kinds of things, because if you're going to come here and do ESL, or not even ESL, you're just going to live here, because it can be a disgusting place. I mean, you can see some pretty filthy things going on. Internet. I have no problem with the internet. If I need to contact people, contact my family, Skype, Facebook, it's pretty easy. So. But if you're going to spend all your, but he's right though, if you're going to spend all your time on Skype and Facebook, it's like, don't bother, because you're really missing out. So, okay, here's a big one, cultural sensitivity. This is probably the biggest one. Yes, this country, in case you didn't know, can be very, very ignorant. And if you're not ready for that, you could have a really bad time. There's a lot of ignorance. There's a lot of racism about, and there's a lot of lack of awareness of the world outside. Now you could say, well, it's not their fault. They're not educated. Okay, there's some truth to that, yeah. But at the same time, I think people have an obligation to educate themselves. And it's not like there's all these poor people everywhere. Even though there is poverty in this country, there are, a fair amount of, somewhat wealthy, young college students, and a lot of them are pretty ignorant too. And it's like, look, if you're a young person who comes of a decent upbringing, there's no reason why you can't educate yourself, honestly. I mean, it's just, I think sometimes the foreigners are too quick to be passive aggressive with it. I think they're too apologetic about it, and it's like, no, you know what? You should be more educated on this. You should know better. I made the mistake of thinking before I came to China a few years ago, thinking that, oh, well, they already, they're pretty developed now. I mean, it's not like it used to be 20, 30 years ago. But no, when you get here, you realize, no, I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of awareness, of knowing more about other people. Like the whole photo thing, it's like, I don't appreciate that. I think it's very rude. And if it wasn't rude, then why do people do it discreetly? If people want to take pictures of a foreigner and they try and do it discreetly, then why would it not be considered rude? Of course it's rude. They're trying to do it secretly. They're trying to make sure you're not looking, because if they do, they don't want you to know about it. Of course that's fucking rude, don't be ridiculous. So, I don't want to totally do this hate spiel on China, but I think there are things that if you're new to China that you need to be aware of. I really want to add some points here, more in terms of working in China, if you're doing ESL or just working. Work ethic. Work ethic in China is not the best. A lot of places you go to, it's slower. Working there slower. There's a lack of urgency to get things done, getting things done on time, punctuality, meeting deadlines. It's just not really, in a lot of places, it's not really a big deal, and it can stifle you, I think, a bit in terms of your work output and even your morale too. It's like, if they don't care, why should I, kind of thing. So, management, when you're working at ESL centers, sometimes the managers, they don't really respect the foreign teacher's opinion, which I think is very bad for business. That's the thing too, that's a big thing I think that you have to deal with, is their lack of business sense. I think sometimes they think that, well, you're a foreigner, you don't really know our culture, you don't understand the way we do business here. But it's like, there's fundamentals, I think, to good business, and I think the Chinese managers don't even know that. They really don't. To them, it's just like, oh, we're making money, so that's good. And that's all we need. But it's like, no, there's a lot more to it than that. And I think keeping foreign staff happy and wanting them to stay is great for business, but they don't see it like that. They think, they kind of sometimes look at foreigners as replaceable, and we don't really need them, or we can get anybody and we can still make money. So you have to be ready for for things like that. Dishonesty, yeah, I mean, people can be very dishonest, and they will lie to you if they think they can get, if they feel like they can get some kind of advantage. But it's like, I think, Steven, you're a little too dismissive of it, like, oh yeah, they'll lie to you, so what? It's like, no, it's like, why should I just take it? I think sometimes the foreigners are a little too apologetic to the things that go on. Here's my thing. They are what they are, it is what it is, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you have to let it continue. You can if someone's being insensitive or ignorant about something, that, you're a teacher, take it upon yourself to educate people. Not just about English, about social problems or cultural issues, things that can be, helped on, things that they can be more aware of. And it doesn't have to be like, well, you need to listen to me because I'm a white American and I know better. No, you can say, look, you need to have more of the attitude of, I'm telling you this because you don't really, that's because what you're saying isn't quite true, and I'm going to help you with that, Yeah. There's a thing too with lack of responsibility, I feel like, and this is a big thing too that you have to be prepared for. A lot of times in China, whether you're working, whether it's at work or whether it's just some kind of customer service, there's a lack of responsibility. They want to give the responsibility to other people. They never want to just take the responsibility because, for whatever reason, it is a very cultural thing of not wanting to be responsible for your actions or not wanting to take blame. Because, the truth is, a lot of Chinese people, they're terrified of getting blamed on something. They have this thing. There's this big thing, face culture. Losing face. To lose face to them is like the ultimate shame, and sometimes it's like borderline ridiculous. It's like you got to take responsibility for your actions. If you fucked up on something, just admit, say, you know what, my fault, I fucked up. But a lot of times they won't do that. They really won't, and it's like you need to be ready for those kinds of things. And they'll blame other people like that, or they'll try and spin it and try and get you to blame when it's like, no, I didn't. It's got nothing to do with me. So, lack of communication too in work. Sometimes like things will change on the schedule, or maybe something got moved or something like that. A meeting got moved, or class got changed. Something will change in the plan, and nobody says anything. Why? Because they just don't feel like it's that important. They just don't think it's important to tell people what's going on. It's not necessarily good, it's not necessarily an ideal workplace. So you need to be ready for that. You need to be, I think if you're new to working in China, you need to be ready for the way they work here. And if you're not ready for that, you're going to have a really hard time, because the way they work it's very possible that the way they work is completely different than the way you work back home. And this can be a serious thing, and it can be very disheartening and very demoralizing, and just like you're just like, oh, I don't care anymore, And to be honest, I think, Stephen, your video was actually a little too light. I think you kind of skimmed over some real issues. So I'm not trying to say that the video was pointless or not or whatnot, and I don't want to be overly negative either, because at the end of the day, doing ESL China has really helped me a lot. It's really giving me a lot of satisfaction with my life. It's really giving me a lot of career opportunities. But living in China, dealing with Chinese culture can be difficult. And if you're not ready for it, you can have a hard time, and you're just going to be like, oh, why did I come here? And that's not what you want. I don't think, you shouldn't come all the way over here and feel like, why did I come here? Why did I do this? I don't want people feeling the sense of regret coming here. I don't think that's good. People should come here and enjoy themselves. And there are a lot of things you can enjoy about China. And Stephen, you've probably taken care of that. I don't think I need to go into too many details. But I think just people need to be a bit more aware of the negative aspects of it. So that's my bit. If you have any response to that, Stephen, and maybe talk more in detail. I didn't want to go too long, so I'm going to try and end it right here. So, yeah. Got any responses, Stephen? I'd be happy to talk about it. Take care.